Well, I want to thank you all, Mishkan, for inviting me, and I want to thank everybody for coming out as well. When I was thinking about it last night, and I was thinking of like New Jim Crow, and it just made me, think about when I was a kid. It was Jim Crow. I was born in the 50s. When I was a kid, there was Jim Crow. I didn't really go through no bathrooms and the bathrooms and stuff like that. But it just, when I think about it, it's 2015, and we're still in Jim Crow. So I mean that was just like a thought that I had, and it just makes no sense to me that in this day and age that we're still asking for the exact same things that we were asking for 50 years or so ago. So I just thought that was just a thought that I had this morning. A little bit about myself. I work with the Human Rights Coalition and the Abolitionist Law Center, and I'm in coalition with the Global Women's Strike. With the Human Rights Coalition, we work within the prisons. We gather abuse logs. We deal with inmates who are mainly in solitary confinement and are being abused. We also help jailhouse lawyers, and also just anybody who wants to file complaints about stuff that's happening to them within the prisons. We help them file those complaints. The Abolitionist Law Center is comprised of some of the people who were in Human Rights Coalition were so tired of what was going on, they decided to go to law school. So 2 of them decided to create a organization, and the Abolitionist Law Center is it's a nonprofit, it's a public interest law firm, and what they're doing is working with political prisoners, working with people who have become political prisoners. Some of the issues we're working on right now is the at SCI Fayette in Cole Township was built over a coal mine, a coal ash or something. It's waste and it's toxic, and the prisoners are being affected, but we wouldn't have known about the prisoners being affected if it wouldn't have been for the guards started complaining about they were being affected by this. So we have been sending in surveys into the prisons and just finding out that there's so many, it's a big number of the prisoners that are their health is really being compromised by being over a coal ash. We're also working with the GAG. They're trying to stop prisoners from being able to have a voice. They don't want them to be able to speak about what's going on with them. So we're also fighting against that law. It was really decided to stop Mamiya from speaking, but it really would stop the voice of all prisoners. So that's something that that we're working on as well. The main thing that I have been working on for maybe the past 2 years or so is the Dowel Six Campaign, and I came to that by way of my son being one of the members of Dowel Six, and my son's name is Carrington Keys, but there are also there's Andre Jacobs, Anthony Kelly, Anthony Locke, Dwayne Peters, and then Derek Stanley, who will be here later. These men were all in the RHU, which is it's a restricted housing unit. They make names up, a restricted housing unit, special management unit, but basically what it is torture chamber, and it's a modern day dungeon. They keep men in these places. It's a 6x9 cell with mostly, there's never a window, so they can't see anything to the outside, and the only thing they have that they can see out of is like a little window that can fit their face, and then there's a slot where they can stick their hands out to get their food or medicine. So they're supposed to be in these cells 23 hours a day. They're supposed to come out of these cells at least 1 hour of the day to get shower, to get yard. But what happens, the guards are lazy or the guards are retaliating. So a lot of times the guys never get to come out, period, you know, for shower or anything. So these are just some of the basic rights that the men fight for. Now, some of the abuse that the men endure, they endure abuses such as spit in their food, feces or urine in their food. My son at one point found glass in his food. Most of the time they're not given food. They starved my son to the point where he had lost 20 pounds. They won't give, sometimes they take their mail, show them you got mail from your mother or whoever, and they'll rip it up. Or if you're trying to write to the outside, they'll take the mail and show you, and they'll just drop it in, you know, in the trash. What led to the Dowel Six incident is these abuses and the fact that Human Rights Coalition was collecting information, and the Dowel Six were people who were whistleblowers, and they were instrumental in giving information to the outside about what was going on in there. And we created abuse logs, and I think they said we have over, I don't know if it's 900 cases or 900 pages, but I know we have a lot of abuse logs of what's going on, and they come from every prison in Pennsylvania, and everything that happens in one happens in the other, so you can't think it's an isolated incident. From the information that the guys gave us, Brett Grody and some of the other HRC members created a 93-page report. And we sent a copy of this report in, and nobody really thought. We were just happy of all the information that we got and the work that was done. And they passed it in, and they didn't black out anybody's name. So once it got into the prison, the security got a hold to it, and so they knew, everybody who submitted. And it wasn't just the Dowel Six. There was many more people who had submitted to this report. So once it was known that this report was out, and also the report was submitted to elected officials, and also I believe it was revealed to the DLC, not the DLC, the DOJ. And so once they, found out about all of this, they began a rampage. The guards were one by one going in the cells, beating, people that had submitted information to this report. And one of the Dowel Six members was being starved, and another young man, he wasn't a part of the Dowel Six, but he was part of the reason why they did it. His name is Isaac Sanchez. He said, hey, why don't you feed that man? You haven't fed him, for a couple of days, you need to give him food. So their reply to that was to take Isaac and put him in a restraint chair, which the guys call it a torture chair, because basically that's what it is. In this restraint chair, you're everything strapped down. Your whole body's strapped down, and you don't get any, your limbs aren't getting any circulation. So you're only supposed to be in this chair for 2 hours, and that is what the manufacturer of this chair tells them. You're only supposed to be in there for 2 hours, or you can lose your limbs. Well, Isaac believes he was in there anywhere from 16 to 30 hours, because he said it was daytime, then nighttime, then daytime. So he wasn't sure how long he was in, but he definitely was in there for more than 2 hours. And during the time that Isaac was in this chair, they were going in there beating him. Beating him even while he's in this chair. The chair is supposed to be used if you're out of control. Well, if you're strapped down, you're in control. You know, there's nothing you can do. So they were beating him, you know, and he was yelling and crying or whatever. And all the guys, you know, heard that. And so what they did, they covered up their windows. Now, if you're in solitary, at least in Pennsylvania, if you cover up your window, the captain the lieutenant, or whoever the highest person is, has to come down. And this is just something that they do because, that might be Derek. They do that because they want to tell the captain stuff that the guards are lower than them. So they try to write off the grievances or whatever. But if you give it to the guard you've done it against, he's not going to follow the proper, route with it. So they always do this to get the captain down to tell what the guards were doing. So the guys got the guard down, got the captain down, and they told the captain, we want some outside intervention. We want to hear from the media. We want to hear from the DA's office. We want somebody from the outside to come in here because we want to tell them what's happening to us, what you guys are doing to us. And basically they said that they were told, you must be crazy, if we're letting anybody in here, to see what we're doing or whatever. So eventually what the guards did was go up, put on their riot gear, just like they wear riot gear out here for unarmed people. They wear riot gear inside the prisons. So they put on their riot gear, and then they came down one by one, went into the guys' cells. They threw tear gas on them. They pepper sprayed them. They have a shock stick and a taser. They said they were hitting them with the stick and shocking them with the stick, and then they were tasering the men on their genitals. And some of them, they took the handcuffs. I guess they stuck them, they hit them and beat them in the head with the handcuffs so they could break, so their heads were bleeding and stuff. And so they call that a cell extraction. So they cell extracted the men. And once they cell extract you, whatever clothing you have on, they take a box cutter and just rip it down and rip off your clothes, and you're butt naked. And they take them and they place them in these cells. They're not cells, they put them in a cage. It's like a little dog kennel cage they put them in. So they put them in the cages, and then they did not receive any medical treatment. And some of them were in the cages for like up to 12 hours. And after that, after being in the cages, they emergency evacuated them to different places, different prisons. Except for one, they left Dwayne Peters there, and they just moved him like last year, and he was still being subjected to torture. So after they were emergency evacuated, well, in between, sometime during what was going on, my son was able to get a letter out to me, and he was like, Mom, there's stuff going on here, and I really believe it's going to be bloody. So as soon as you get this letter, call. So when I called, they told me they had moved him. So I called wherever they had moved him, and they said, I was like, well, is he okay? He said, something was happening and he might not be okay. And they told me that he was, but he was not okay. Now, after they got to the different prisons, they wrote again. They wrote out to HRC again, told us what had happened, and HRC took all the information from the guys and put together a criminal complaint. And they took the criminal complaint to, I believe it was the state police, who's supposed to have jurisdiction over the state prisons. And my son filed a lawsuit against the DA of Luzerne County, and this is the same county where the Kids for Cash scandal took place. My son filed a lawsuit against Jackie Musto Carroll, who was the DA at that time, because he had wrote her he had been writing her for a long period of time, telling her what was happening, asking her, can you please send somebody to investigate? She never wrote him back, never acknowledged anything. So he filed a lawsuit against her. So at that time, the criminal complaint that was given to the state police, Jackie Mustocaro and the Department of Correction got together because the state police gave the DLC the complaint. Like, that's what they do when you make complaints about the DLC. Whoever you give the complaint to, I mean, I've even wrote to senators and stuff, they give it back to them to police themselves. So the state police gives the DLC the information that the guys that we were going to file a criminal complaint against them for the abuse and other stuff. So these three entities, the DA, the DLC, and the state police, came together and charged these men with a bogus charge of riot. And this case has been going on for 5 years. It's everything that has been done in this case to incriminate these men has been done illegally, but somehow it is still being pushed through the court. Just recently, a attorney of one of the other men filed a prosecutorial misconduct against the district attorney of that county because there is some very incriminating evidence that even he had knowledge of some of the stuff. And I guess he might be actually helped in some of the stuff because they erased some of the videotapes. They erased footage from the videotapes because they taped everything. And so, I mean, there's just like so much going on. Right now, the Dowel Six, they're a part of an overall national movement of prisoners that are holding peaceful protests throughout the country, such as the California hunger strikers, the Georgia, work strikers. These people have been waging peaceful protests, and it's all due to the things that are going on in solitary and the abuse and the racism and just the injustices that are going on within the prison systems. In the wake of Ferguson, a lot of attention, is being brought to what's happening, and I think it's awakening a movement, and this is like the greatest time right now to be movement building. And like my son always says, he said, prison is a microcosm of America. So what's happening outside on the streets is the same thing that's happening within the prisons. And that is, that's like a real big reason why we need a whole lot of support, with this case. I think right now I'm going to let Derek talk. He's one of the Dowel Six, and after that, then I'll tell you about some ways that we can use your help and give contact information, and then I guess you can ask us some questions. But Derek can give you more info, personal experience of the case.
Okay.